Biggest pro of the heat bulb is that it illuminates your tank. So visually it looks very nice versus having no visual heat source on the tank, which makes it look very dark. Another pro of the heat lamp is you can adjust the wattage of the bulb, so 100 watt to a 75 watt, which will change the temperature. You can also adjust the style of the bulb. So whereas this guy right here is a tight beam basking bulb, which directs the heat straight down to the bottom of the tank, you might also be able to use an incandescent style bulb, which radiates out in all directions. So the style of the heat bulb is very directional, which will allow you to put the heat source either on the ground, in a tree, or just an ambient heat source, something you cannot do with the heat pad. Some of the pros of doing the heat bulb, that would be adjusting the temperature via wattage, via the style of the bulb, and then adjusting the way it looks visually. Now, some of the cons of heat bulbs, they blow out, and sometimes they blow out like crazy. So we all know how shipping companies work. They throw the boxes. I've had heat bulbs last over a year. I've had heat bulbs last about 10 seconds. The second biggest con to the heat bulb, let's just call it what it is, it can be a fire hazard. Keyword there is can be. I am not saying this is a fire hazard. For instance, if a cat gets on top of your tank and knocks it over. Anytime you have something that's getting very hot like that, you need to be aware. Lastly, and I'm going to go back to the style of the bulb, would be the halogen bulb. These are a very, very tight directional bulb, and they will burn the animal if not used properly. So if you don't make sure that this is far enough away, it will burn the animal. They just lack the mental capacity sometimes to realize that they're being slow cooked. Now, your heat mat or under tank heater, you're usually going to get about 10 years on these before they blow out per se or just stop working. That is probably your biggest pro to these. Another pro is that it's very unlikely that they'll burn the animal. The Zoom Ed heat pad is, for the most part, pre-programmed to not get too hot, although most people will put these on a thermostat to ensure that they don't get too hot. The biggest pro is they don't blow out, so you might go through, in 10 years, you're probably going to go through at least 10 bulbs at a minimum. So this right there immediately will save you some money. But then the other pro with this too would be the low clearance. Since it sticks underneath your tank, if you don't have the height on top of the tank for a heat bulb, this will allow you to utilize a very low clearance area and still apply your heat. That being said, a con with the heat pad isn't necessarily in the heat pad itself, but in how it's utilized. So these will stick underneath the tank, and sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes I'll see individuals that don't put bedding in the tank. They only do newspaper or paper towels. So if you have this just stuck to the bottom of the tank with no insulation in there via substrate, the animal can slow cook and get a thermal burn on their belly. That is definitely a common con to these. Another con to the heat pad is you get no visual light. So if this is your only heat source, you're gonna have a tank that visually is very dark and it just doesn't look real pretty. My personal opinion, I'm a fan of the heat bulb. I love the ability to adjust the visual light. I love the ability to adjust my heat utilizing the different types of bulbs. But at the end of the day, it's all personal preference.